Alright, I'm going to try and be short because I tend to be long-winded. As I mentioned, I'm going to try and catch as many species as possible on my cork poppers. One thing that I have found is that my cork poppers seem to work better than what is out there currently. They don't cast as well, but the profile's a lot better and they put out a lot more water movement. I really think the important part is buoyancy. I think that they're much more buoyant. So I already sort of mentioned what, the overview of what I was doing, but I did want to show you some. So I went down in my storage unit down in the basement and found some old ones, and I hope, I'm going to shake this because sometimes it doesn't zoom in. And I'll pull it back just in case. I think the simplicity is really important. A couple legs, a couple feathers, light over dark color, and that's it. I primarily use green over white because these are primarily freshwater species flies. But I've caught barracuda on green over white. So I think for stuff that's on the surface, color matters a lot less. And I'm not sure color matters a whole lot anyways, because these things just put out a ton of commotion. And for example, I was in a bite in October once. It was a nor'easter coming in, and I had 3 fish over 5 pounds, largemouth bass, 3 fish over 5 pounds, one was over 5.5. I had like 8 or so that were over 3.5, and I had like 25 bass total or something of all different various sizes, most of them over 2 pounds. So on the fly rod, on a 6-weight, that was super fun. And trust me, there were no frogs around at that point, so it was freezing cold. So that's like a pretty typical size. So this is a size 6, I believe. And I'll talk about this some more in a second. This is a size I really like right here. I have no idea if this is going to zoom on this, so I'm going to hold it back by my face so you can see it. This is a size, I think it's a size 2. It's pretty small. They're not like hook sizes. The sizes go up, the size goes up. So even more simple, because I want to be able to cast this with a 4-weight, just 2 legs on the sides, 2 small feathers, and that's it. And you'd be surprised how many big fish you can catch on something, because if you look at the totality of the profile overall, it's pretty big actually. I mean, it's a pretty long, 2.5 inches long, and it's got a fat body, and they fill in the rest. So even though the feathers are small or whatever, that's a pretty big profile, especially if we're trying to cast with a 4-weight. And then this is like a saltwater size one that I've made. This one's actually junk, because see how far the tail points down? It's a casting nightmare. Plus also it just ruins the action when it's down like that. But you can see how simple I make them. I mean, I painted those eyes on, half-ass with acrylic paint, and then I just epoxy over the top of it. These last really well. Like even with barracuda, they last really well. This size is a nightmare. This is a big saltwater hook too. You just can't even cast it even with 11-weight, so I try to stay away from this. There's other flies that cast better that put out similar wake on the surface if I'm doing saltwater, so I don't use this size as much, but it's a good illustration of what I'm talking about. So just to start, I'll go through the whole process of how I make them, how I cut them, all that stuff. But just to start the process first, where to get the cork poppers? Don't go to the craft store. The craft store does not have as high quality cork, and the problem with that is if you cut it, they crumble. So this is a AAA grade cork popper in sizes 2, 6, and 8. So 2, 6, 8. And the thing about this, these are from widgets.com. The price is good. It's probably actually cheaper than the store anyways. But you can see there's very little holes and imperfections in these. And when you cut the slit down the back side of it to put the hook in, to lay the hook, they don't just crumble and fall apart. So you get a nice, even channel that you can fill with super glue or epoxy, depending on what you want to use, which I'll get to later. But so that's step 1. So get the best cork poppers you can. They're not that much more expensive. It's totally worth it. And this quantity, because they last so long, this should be a couple years worth. But I'm going to try and make a whole bunch. I really wanted to focus on just 2 and 6 sizes, but I decided to try 8s as well. A little bit bigger, I'll probably use these ones for stripers, and then these are like my general use, and these are for my bigger largemouth bass like pike, that kind of thing. So that's the beginnings of the Cork Poppers. Follow along with the updates, and if you have any questions for me, you can email me at jerry@outflowfishing.com. This is going to be a fun project. This is all off the cuff. I'm not rehearsed, and I'm not going to really edit this. This is supposed to be a really raw look at what Dave and I do as anglers and how we accomplish our goals. So you get to follow along with us. So step 1, buy the best cork you can.